Paul Heyman stood in that ring, microphone in hand, delivering the same tired lines we've heard 1,000 times before. And you know what? Nobody cared anymore. The man who once made grown wrestlers tremble with a single promo, the mastermind who built ECW from nothing, the advocate who turned Brock Lesnar into the most feared force in WWE history, has become nothing more than a scripted puppet dancing on repeat. If you think I'm being too harsh, then stick around, because what I'm about to expose will make your blood boil. This isn't just about bad booking or creative direction. This is about the systematic destruction of the greatest manager in professional wrestling history, and you need to know exactly who's responsible. Let me take you back to a time when Paul Heyman's name alone could sell out arenas, when his voice could turn a mediocre wrestler into a main event star. The Heyman of ECW wasn't just a manager, he was a revolutionary. He took the outcasts, the misfits, the wrestlers that WCW and WWE threw away, and he turned them into legends. Shane Douglas, Raven, Tommy Dreamer, Taz, Rob Van Dam. These men became household names because Paul Heyman knew how to tell their stories. He understood psychology, he understood what made fans tick, and most importantly, he understood that wrestling needed to be unpredictable and dangerous. When Paul Heyman arrived in WWE after ECW's collapse, he brought that same energy. His promos were must-see television. Remember when he turned Big Show into a legitimate monster? When he managed Kurt Angle and made their partnership feel like a legitimate threat to everyone on the roster? But then something changed. WWE realized they didn't need Paul Heyman the creative genius. They needed Paul Heyman the mouthpiece. And that's when the slow death of his aura began. The Brock Lesnar era should have been Paul Heyman's crowning achievement. And for a while, it was. Those early promos where Heyman introduced Lesnar as the next big thing were phenomenal. The way he built up Lesnar's credentials, the way he made every Lesnar appearance feel like a special attraction, it was vintage Heyman magic. But here's where things went horribly wrong. WWE became so dependent on the Heyman-Lesnar pairing that they forgot Paul Heyman could do anything else. For over a decade, Heyman became nothing more than Lesnar's hype man, repeating the same catchphrases, the same cadence, the same predictable structure in every single promo. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman. We get it, Paul. We've known your name for 20 years. And I am the advocate for the reigning, defending, undisputed WWE Universal Champion. How many times can you say the same sentence before it loses all meaning? This is what WWE did to Paul Heyman. They took a man capable of cutting 100 different types of promos and reduced him to a human catchphrase generator. The spontaneity was gone. The danger was gone. The unpredictability that made Heyman special completely vanished. Trivia question: can you name the year Paul Heyman first managed Brock Lesnar in WWE? Drop your answer in the comments below. But the real death blow to Heyman's aura came with the Roman Reigns storyline. Now, before you Roman Reigns fans attack me in the comments, hear me out. The Bloodline story has been phenomenal. Roman Reigns' heel turn has been one of the best character developments in modern WWE. But did Paul Heyman need to be there? Did the tribal chief really need a special counsel who spent most of his time cowering in the corner, looking terrified, and basically playing comedy relief? This is Paul Heyman we're talking about. The man who verbally destroyed wrestlers twice his size in ECW. The man who could talk his way out of any situation with cunning and intelligence. And WWE reduced him to a scared lackey who screams "acknowledge him" at the top of his lungs. The problem isn't that Heyman aligned with Roman Reigns. The problem is how they used him. Instead of being the strategic mastermind behind Reigns' success, he became a prop, a recurring gag. Remember when the Usos would physically intimidate Heyman for laughs? Remember when Heyman would practically wet himself every time Roman gave him a stern look? This isn't character development. This is character assassination. You cannot tell me that the same Paul Heyman who stood toe-to-toe with Vince McMahon, who verbally sparred with Stone Cold Steve Austin, who built an entire wrestling company on pure charisma and vision, would be reduced to a cowardly yes man. And let's talk about the promos themselves during the Bloodline era. They became formulaic to the point of parody. Heyman would start with his usual introduction, then spend 5 minutes listing Roman Reigns' accomplishments, throw in some "acknowledge him" chants, and that's it. Where was the storytelling? Where was the emotional depth? Where was the Paul Heyman who could make you feel something with his words? It all disappeared because WWE Creative decided that Heyman's only purpose was to make Roman look good, rather than allowing both characters to elevate each other. We have a quick request for you. We are constantly working to improve our content to earn your love and support. That's why we would truly appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update here on Wrestling Zone Insider. The worst part about all of this? Paul Heyman is still one of the most talented talkers in wrestling history. When WWE occasionally lets him off the leash, we see glimpses of the old Heyman. His recent promos have shown moments of brilliance, but they are few and far between. The problem is that WWE has conditioned the audience to expect a certain type of Paul Heyman promo, and anything that deviates from that formula feels out of place. They've put him in a box, and now it's nearly impossible for him to break out of it without completely reinventing his character. Let's compare this to other managers in wrestling history. Bobby Heenan never lost his aura because he was allowed to be versatile. He could be funny, he could be serious, he could manage multiple wrestlers with different personalities, and each partnership felt unique. Jim Cornette maintained his credibility because he was always presented as a legitimate threat, someone whose mind was as dangerous as any weapon. Even modern managers like MJF have maintained their edge by being unpredictable and avoiding repetitive patterns. But Paul Heyman? WWE found a formula that worked once and beat it to death. Trivia question: Paul Heyman managed Centimeter Punk during one of the most controversial storylines in WWE history. What year did this partnership end? Let us know in the comments. The Centimeter Punk alliance was actually one of the last times we saw the real Paul Heyman. That storyline had layers, betrayal, emotional depth, and it reminded everyone why Heyman was considered the best in the business. But what happened after that? Right back to the Brock Lesnar formula. Right back to the same repetitive promos with slight variations. WWE had a chance to show the world that Paul Heyman could still create magic with different wrestlers, but instead, they went back to what was safe and comfortable. And now here we are in 2025, and Paul Heyman's appearances feel obligatory rather than special. When his music hits, do you jump out of your seat with excitement? Or do you already know exactly what he's going to say before he opens his mouth? That's the problem. Predictability is the death of wrestling, and Paul Heyman has become the most predictable performer on the roster despite being one of the most talented. That's not his fault. That's a failure of creative direction and a fundamental misunderstanding of what made Paul Heyman special in the first place. WWE needs to realize that Paul Heyman is more than just a manager. He's a storyteller, a creative genius, and someone who should be used to elevate talent in meaningful ways rather than just repeating the same tired act. If they truly wanted to restore his aura, they would let him manage a young up-and-coming star who needs that Heyman magic to reach the next level. Let him cut promos that aren't scripted to death. Let him be dangerous again. Let him be unpredictable. Let him remind everyone why he's Paul freaking Heyman. But until WWE makes that change, we're stuck watching one of the greatest minds in wrestling history waste his talents on autopilot. And that, more than anything else, is what should make every wrestling fan angry. Paul Heyman didn't lose his aura because he got old or because his skills diminished. He lost it because WWE systematically stripped away everything that made him special and replaced it with a safe, corporate-approved version that checks boxes but doesn't create moments. So the next time you see Paul Heyman in that ring, ask yourself, are you watching the real Paul Heyman, or are you watching a carefully manufactured product designed to serve someone else's vision? The answer to that question will tell you everything you need to know about how one of wrestling's greatest assets became just another cog in the machine. What do you think? Has Paul Heyman truly lost his aura, or is there still hope for the Wiseman to reclaim his throne? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to let us know which Paul Heyman era was your favorite. Was it the ECW days, the original Lesnar run, or something else entirely? This is Wrestling Zone Insider, and we'll see you in the next one.